I'm so excited you guys are here because I'm opening my doors to my one-on-one coaching program, Find Your Yes, because we all deserve to live a life that feels like a hell yes. Women are leaders, and leadership is found in entrepreneurship, leading teams within a business, volunteer organizations, your community, and at home with your family. Whether you're desiring to make a transformation into leadership or you want to up-level your skills to become a more effective leader, this program is for you. I've been leading at work and at home for over a decade, and this is what I know. It wasn't until I did the inner work that I personally needed to do that my leadership skills really improved. And that's why I created the Find Your Yes program. So you don't have to do the inner work alone. As someone who has been there, I will guide you as we work through your shadows, heal past traumas, overcome self-limiting beliefs, and watch you transform from the inside out. So if you're ready to create a life that feels like a hell yes, head over to www.jessiblois.com/contact to book a call, or head over to my Instagram @JessieBlois and send me a DM. I'm so excited to connect and to find your yes. Okay, I'm really excited. I have Dr. Kathryn Keithly with me, and she goes by Dr. Katy, but I called her Kate, so we're going to see how this goes because I'm going to try to do Katy, but I'm sure it's going to come out Kate. But
Totally fine.
Kate and I met over a decade ago. We were both working in the schools together, and now we'll get into it, but our paths have gone outside of the school system. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to just see you and talk with you and have you on the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So exciting. Okay, so let's do a little background on you. Dr. Katy is a clinic in Monterey, California. You work with children and do psychoeducational and neuropsychological assessments to help them overcome various struggles and disabilities. You practice a patient-centered approach to treatments, focusing on their strengths, weaknesses, personal experiences, and needs to provide a personalized healing plan. So you are a licensed educational psychologist and a board-certified sports psychologist with a state certification in school psychology. And you hold a, how do you say it, PSYD in clinical psychology?
Yeah, PsyD.
PsyD, okay. As well as a master's in counseling psychology with a concentration in educational psychology. Okay, I'm tired just reading that. How the hell did you do all that? And you're my age.
When people were going on trips to Europe and really exploring their 20s and 30s, I was in school, and my mom said, if you want to make it in this field, and you have to just keep going and not stop.
Yeah.
And that was honestly great advice. So I just kind of had that in my mind that I was just going to keep going.
And you did.
I did. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to talk about that. But first, fill us in. I know there's a lot more. So fill us in on some of the highlights of what you're doing now. And then I want to talk about kind of the beginning, your childhood, and a little bit about what your upbringing was like.
Yeah, so what I do now is really just help families figure out what's going on with their child, because I think a lot of school districts assessments are really basic. They only give, certain tests, certain batteries just to determine special education eligibility. But what I do is I look at special education eligibility and also medical side of things. And then I have a lot of different tests that I can really figure out and really go down to where is that learning, where's that weakness, why is all of this happening? And so I've been doing a lot of that. I do some counseling, which I've had for several years with some kids that I'll probably never let go of. And then I really been specializing in these IEEs, so independent educational evaluations, where families and school districts don't agree. And so I come in as a third party.
Yeah. When you say the medical side of things, is that more of like an ADHD diagnosis or a dyslexia diagnosis? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, rather than the 13 disabling criteria in special education.
Because the schools don't look into all of that, right? I mean, they don't have the ability. really.
I think they're just completely overwhelmed and
Yeah.
they're only looking to see, does this kid qualify for my program?
Yeah.
Does this kid qualify for speech or RSP or, so while that's nice for some people, other families that are in private schools, that's not what they're looking for.
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I see that from my end as well. And I think it's really important. I think if a family has the ability to really understanding the why
Mm-hmm.
their
Yeah,
child is struggling is so empowering.
it is. And it's also empowering for, older kids to really understand, that metacognition, like this is how I learn. And I talk to them about, okay, when you go in college, you need to figure out how you learn the best because it makes it easier for you.
Yeah, setting them up to succeed. And because if they're
Right.
not succeeding, that's impacting their self-worth.
Absolutely. Yeah. And their self-esteem.
Well, it's important work and it's powerful work for sure. So let's start a little bit from the beginning. What kind of childhood did you have? What were things you were exposed to? I know you had really supportive parents, which is beautiful. Talk to us a little bit about just what made you Katy.
Yeah, I will say my parents are still a big impact in my life. They're, two of my best friends,
It's so nice.
and they always have supported me and talked to me about even what we were just talking about, like this is how you learn the best. This is what I think you should do. My mom was a speech therapist, special education. She ran her own private practice for 35 years. And so she really kind of helped me get involved and look at these different things that I could do. But even before that, I grew up riding horses and really competing, throughout the United States doing that. And that was really fun. I'm pretty competitive with sports. And then I switched over to golf and I competed in high school, college. I was my team captain and I still play today. I try to play every week with my dad and do some tournaments. So I really have a passion for sports and kids to play sports. That's one of the things I did my thesis on is sports and how it helps kids' self-esteem.
I can see that. I'm smiling at golf right now. I'm stuck on you competing in golf because I can't make the club touch the ball.
Fun.
It's so hard. Okay. No, I see that my kids, my son's a soccer player and my daughter's a dancer, and they've decided to go all in and we support it. But I think there's so many life lessons to come out of sports. I mean, they're put in new situations and new teams, or they don't feel adequate on a team, or they're struggling in a certain area. And it's really allowed me to talk about, okay, this is your situation right now, but this is also life, and this is how we're going to approach it. And I've seen a lot of growth through their activities in sports, but also opportunities for me to teach them how to be the
Mm-hmm.
humans I hope they grow into. So, what did that do for you? I know if you're competing at that level, that's a lot. That has to be hard. You're succeeding, but I'm assuming you're also dealing with failure and learning how to not give up.
Yeah, I think it really teaches resilience, and I think a lot of kids nowadays don't have that. And I
There's a
think,
lot of immediate gratification that is wanted these days.
yeah, I mean, I don't, no video games in my house. There's just, I think kids should play outside and play sports. I think that breeds to a balanced child,
Mm-hmm.
which I see a lot of, unbalanced kids nowadays, just in the approach of their whole being, what's happening at home, what's happening at school. But yeah, I think that it's helped me tremendously. It showed me kind of what's important in life too.
What do you
I
mean by that? Can you elaborate?
I think that rather than being stuck on, I think traveling is great, or rather being stuck at video games or a certain show that I have to watch, growing up. I was more in improving myself and being the best person that I could be. And I feel like that's always been my mindset. So practicing, going to the gym, going to school, those are the ways that I set myself up to be the best person I could be.
So I want to ask you, is that just innately who you are, or did your parents help to cultivate that in you? And if they did, how?
Yeah, they definitely helped. My dad is a really good golfer. And when I started, I was just like you. I couldn't hit the ball very far. And he said to me, "You'll have a lot more fun, Katie, when you can hit it." And he was right. But it was just kind of something. He's 100% Irish. It was just something we kind of had to do. And so, but then I grew to love it. And it was just like in my family, you have to pick a sport and you have to give it 100%.
That's what I'm doing. I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't care what it is. And if you don't want to do this one, you can change, but you're in something.
You're in something and yeah, and you're busy.
Oh, good.
Uh,
Oh, good. I'm making good choices.
I think so.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
so proud of myself right now.
you should be. Yeah, it was just part of my family is just being competitive and not overly, I think some families take it too far where the kids get burnt out easy.
Yeah.
So again, I think there has to be a nice balance there of really listening to your child. Like, hey, if you need a break today, I get you, but we're going to get right back in there tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because we've made a commitment and this is what we're doing as a family.
What did it teach you as far as, or how did your parents coach you through this when it was really hard? Or when if you did want to quit, how was that handled to teach you the resilience that you have?
I think really listening to where I was coming from and then, allowing me to take some space from it and not putting the pressure on when I was like down, but just allowing me to have some space or some time off. And then my dad's always been my golf coach. So he's always right there, supporting me still to this day. When we go out on the course, he is.
Is that his career?
No, he
Okay.
was a salesman. He was a very successful salesman, but
Okay.
always was a really good golfer. But I think just that constant support of both of them to know that even if you do fail, that's okay. Nobody is successful 100% of the time. I mean, look at professional athletes. Like it's just you can't have that high of a bar for yourself because you will be let down. So, have a high expectation, but realize, this is life. Things happen.
Yeah. As a parent, my oldest is 11 and he just transitioned to a new soccer team that's playing at a much higher caliber. So he went from feeling like one of the best players on the team, one of the worst.
Hmm.
And his immediate reaction was like, I want to go back to my old team.
Yeah.
And as a parent, it's really hard to see your child struggle and be sad.
Yeah.
So, I mean, did I want to make it easy and be like, okay, buddy, let's do it. Let's go back. Like, it's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay. Absolutely. I didn't. I said, like, well, this is just what you're doing, and you made the commitment for the year, so you can reevaluate in a year, knowing that if he gave it a year, he'd be fine. But I
I
will
think
say, I'm also the
realistic.
parent that without his knowledge, I'm calling the coach, being like, what's going on? Is he appropriate for this team? And I'm doing my due diligence on the back end, but
Yeah,
not for him to know that I'm doing it. But it's really hard as a parent to
it
see
is.
your child struggle and know that you can't make it better for them in the moment.
Right. And I love that you said that you made the commitment to the team because that's what it is. They made a commitment and I think it's okay for kids to not feel the best because then that pushes them to be better.
Right.
It's like, I tell you the other kids when I talk, they say, "Oh, Sally's the best in the classroom." Well, what is Sally doing that makes her the best? Why don't you watch her and report back to me and tell me what she's doing that you're not doing? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's learning right there. Oh, well, she's raising her hand. She really asks a lot of questions. Well, yeah, that's what you should be doing. And the same with your son, like, what's the best player doing? Does he practice more than you? Is he older than you? Like, really
Right.
breaking that down.
That, yeah, I mean, that's good. Really asking those questions. And then I love the idea of asking them questions because it gives them ownership. over the solution.
Right.
Right. So even in my company, we have a policy that if there's a concern, or I don't want to use the word complaint, but if there's something that's bothering somebody, bring it to us, but also bring it with a solution.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Because
love that.
you need to be a part of, you need to have ownership over it. I'm not here just to tell you what to do. I want to collaborate and I want to hear your thoughts, and I want you to feel like you are a part of whatever conclusion we come to. So yeah, I do. I see the value in teaching that for your children as well. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I mean, even talking with my husband, about things that he has at work, it's like if you come with a solution to your boss where they don't have to think about it and it's rational and it makes sense, doesn't that make everybody's life easier?
Right. And they see you being positive and solution focused. Then you're not just bringing a complaint to your boss. As a boss, I want to know that you care too. And
Right.
we're all in this together. I talk about feminine leadership, and a part of that is the collaboration aspect. And I'm not here just to tell you yes or no. At some point, yeah, as the owner of the company, in order for there to be a company, sometimes you have to make the yes or no call. But as much as I can, I do want it to be collaborative with the people that work there, because it is a team. It is a team. And I think that's
Yeah.
important.
And I think if you're telling them the answer and then they're not speaking up, that might not be the right solution, right?
Exactly. And then it harbors bad feelings, which that just, energy is felt. And yeah, it's a domino effect for sure. So I think it's so important because I see so many kids getting immediate gratification these days. I mean, I'm guilty too. It's really easy to just give them what they want and kind of quiet them down if you need them quiet.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make them successful adults. And that is always when I want to just make it easy, I'm always, who do I want them to be as an
Right.
adult? And then you have to make that decision. And that one's usually a little bit harder.
Yeah, it's harder on us as parents, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a little bit more whining and maybe some crying. And yeah, it's definitely harder. But I mean, the end goal is to make them successful adults. And it sounds like that's what your parents did for you. So
Yeah, I feel truly blessed to have them. And I still bounce ideas off them all the time. They're still there to listen and help me through things, as well as, my husband and my
yeah.
friends. So, yeah, I feel like, I'm always juggling. And I tell my husband, like, okay, I dropped this ball today.
I love that you said juggling, because one of the things I talk about in my coaching and on this podcast is I really don't like the term balance. Like work-life balance, this balance. I'm like, there is no balance. It is not even. You are juggling these balls, and if one is getting your attention, the rest are not getting equal attention.
Right.
It is a juggle for sure. And yeah, balls drop all the time.
Yeah, all the time. I think I dropped one the other day. Oh, I thought I was doing so well picking up my daughter on time because her new school gets out early, and I'm like, yeah, I got this. And I get to the school, I'm like, why is there's nobody here? Oh, they got out an hour ago.
It's okay. I
Here.
did that like 2 weeks ago. We have someone that helps us a couple afternoons a week, and I forgot she was taking a Thursday off, and she told me a few times actually. But when you have a lot of balls in the air, I mean, there's only so much room in your brain. And I get this call from the school, and I'm like, that's so weird. And hear my little 11-year-old, mom, no one else is here with us anymore. Shit. Okay, bud, we're coming. And I didn't even show up late. Like I completely forgot to get my children.
Yeah.
All
Well, I
dropped.
mean, yeah, I've been guilty of all of it. So I just do the best I can.
That's it. We do the best we can. But I will say, not that I advocate for forgetting your kids, but I think it's really important too for our children to see us have
Mm-hmm.
moments of failure or forgetfulness or struggle, because they need to see that you don't give up. And I will say, being the owner of a company, my kids are 11 and 9 now, and they talk a lot about like, well, because you're the boss, right? You're the boss, right? And they're trying to kind of understand what that means. And it's just a lot of yes, but I didn't quit when it was hard. And using their life experience to be like, if you want certain things in your life, you will 1,000% face probably the hardest challenges you'll ever
Right.
face. And you probably have challenges that you could avoid if you didn't take a harder path.
Right.
You know what I
Right. But
mean?
yeah, I think that pushing yourself through those challenges. I mean, I could even think back to professors I had, or even, now clients that I've had that have been, challenging for whatever reason. And
Yeah.
kind of thinking about how to navigate those different paths and not just, jump onto something, but really problem solving for me, and just taking my time to think through different steps and different outcomes is very helpful, if
Did
that
you
makes.
always know to do that? Because before I started doing a lot of that inner work on myself that I was telling you about, I jumped to conclusions very quickly. And I would say yes to please people and then have to backtrack and say no, or I would make a decision because I wanted it to be solved. I had so much anxiety. I wanted it solved right away. And then
Yeah.
it was the wrong choice. So
Mhm.
now I know to take my time, but I went through a lot of shit, for lack of a
Yeah.
better term, to get there. Was that something that you knew to do more because of what you learned as you grew up?
I think part of it was definitely like the sports aspect, and you have to plan out your execution. I
Hmm.
think that's been really helpful. But I think one thing I can remember, and this happened in Redwood City actually.
Where we worked together.
Yeah, when I was at a meeting, and it was, there's attorneys there, and I had done this assessment, and one of them started questioning, my education, and I started to answer, and then our boss said, you know what? She's not going to answer that. She's highly qualified. We're moving on. But that taught me to be confident, and I always remember that
Hmm.
because people get, they kind of can get at you in these, higher profile meetings, and it's just like, yeah, I'm not going to take that. I am who I am. So I kind of segued off of that, but I think that moment was important for me.
I love that. Yeah, you were, given the permission in that moment to own your worth and not have to explain yourself.
Right. And I think about that with other people, and it's just like, nope, this is what I'm doing. But I do think there is anxiety for me, even answering emails or getting back to me. Like, I just feel it looming over me until I get
Hmm.
it done.
Yeah.
And maybe that is the schoolwork part of me too that I've had to do. So it's always looming.
Yeah.
So I just want to get it done. And I have done that where it's not the right answer. And but I'm not perfect. And so taking time to respond to difficult situations is super important, I think.
It really is. I think that's a huge takeaway. Taking time. Also, how you just said, I'm not perfect, allowing humans to be just that and owning when you don't know something or you did mess up. I don't think any of us need to project that we have it all figured out. And I think there's a lot of beauty in vulnerability.
Yeah.
And I think it needs
Yeah.
to be shown more that people, I don't care if you're running a company or you're the leader in a company or whatever, you're the leader of the PTA, just because you're leading doesn't mean you know everything to do, but having the confidence to admit that and allow others to work alongside you, I think that shows strength.
Yeah, I do too. And I think, I'm sure you've been at meetings where there's people that are kind of like know-it-alls, and it's really off-putting.
Yeah.
It's very off-putting for families because they don't feel like they can approach the professional.
Mm-hmm.
It's off-putting for me as a meeting participant, so I always try to be very approachable. And if I don't know an answer to somebody's question, I'm going to take time and I'm going to get back to them and think about it. And I'm going to say, I don't know right now, but I will do my diligence to try to figure that out for you because I don't want to give them the wrong answer and just because it's in the moment.
Yeah, I think it's really, really important. Okay, so we talked a second ago about Redwood City. So we worked together in Redwood City for a school district, and that's where we met. And I think our careers were really just getting going at that point.
Yeah.
And then we both transitioned out of the districts, and I moved to Southern California, and we didn't live near each other anymore. But I want to hear your path. What happened for you? Why did you leave the schools? And what was your vision? What was your dream for yourself that you were working towards?
So I moved down to where I'm from in the Santa Cruz Monterey area to be closer to my parents after I had my daughter, my first daughter. I have two. And I needed their support. So I did some contract work for different places. And then I ran into a boss that was just, I mean, he didn't trust me. And it was like, I just didn't get a good vibe. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. The whole politics of being in a school system,
Yeah.
I was over. And I wanted to kind of go into deeper parts of assessment, and I knew I couldn't do that there. So I came home and I was really upset about this particular boss. And my husband says, just quit. And I was like, well, I don't think I can do that. He's like, yeah, we're done with that. You need to quit. And so I did, and it felt really good. And I was able to call and like tell the people off, which felt really empowering because that's not my personality entirely. So I quit and I just kind of slowly began to start to do more counseling. And then because my mom had her private practice in a
Hmm.
similar area, she knew a few people. And then I just kind of started developing rapport and relationships, and it just took off from there.
So would you say this was more a path of like you had a dream and you were going after it, or life was organically unfolding for you?
Well, I guess after that, I saw the pros of working for myself, and I saw that it could be so much more, and I could help people so much more than where I was.
Uh-huh.
That drove me, and I also really like the flexibility of having children and
Hmm.
being able to work for myself and create my own hours, and so I could be at their sporting events. So I guess it was partly organic, but partly I started to have a vision for it. And that's when I think you and I had a conversation about, the clinic. And
Yeah.
I was really thinking like maybe I should, go further.
Hmm.
But now I feel like I made the right choice for me, and just kind of, having this little more so of a niche that I do
Yeah.
has just kind of worked out. And, obviously, I think religion for me plays a big part of it. Just kind of understanding what my path is, and where I should go to help people is
Hmm.
all things that I feel passionate about listening to.
They're all important, and it's really important, like you said, to listen and to trust your intuition and trust your gut and what feels right. I'll touch on the conversation that you and I had a while back. You called me and you kind of just wanted to pick my brain about expansion and
Mhm.
growing a clinic. And I think what I told you was I'm not going to tell you to do it or not do it, but understand that if you decide to grow a company, your job title, it changes, right? So yeah, I'm a speech pathologist by trade, and I actually went back into treatment a little bit. I just have a couple of clients that I see. But when someone says to me, "What are you?" It's been enough years now that my first response is I'm a business owner because that is what I have to think about or get to think about, depending on the day it's a have to or a get to, all the time.
Yeah.
And when it's smooth, it's great. I can I have a little bit more freedom. But like this last week, we've had a bunch of changes happen all at once, and I'm in the fire.
Yeah.
And when you decide to be a business owner, you have to be available for all of that at any moment because the buck stops with you. So yeah, so that is what I told you. I said, just be
Mhm.
ready to change what you do.
Yeah. And that was really powerful. It was really helpful for me to hear because I talked with my husband about it. And he works for a Fortune 500 company and works full time and is really high up in his company. So his ability to support me in growing it would be limited. And I think
Yeah.
it would cause too much stress on our family right now because
Mm-hmm.
my girls are 10 and 4. And so that I'm really glad that you're upfront and you told me that because it helped me just kind of like stay in my lane, but kind of like grow this assessment part more.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's kind of this is just what I do, and I'm really happy with it. I
Yeah.
can
And it doesn't mean that's forever. You never know what's down
right,
the line.
right. But for right now, I feel like I'm happy with where I want to be. So
Yeah.
I appreciate all your advice.
Well, good. No, and I'm glad that you were able to take that and decide what's best for you right now because what's best for you right now might be really, really different in 5 to 10 years. But knowing what you're about to do, I didn't know, right? Like I knew I
Yeah.
wanted to grow. It sounded really exciting and really fun. And it's just my nature to see how far I can push myself and how
Uh-huh.
much I can make something successful. But I didn't know
Yeah.
what it would feel like to transition into business owner. And I mean, I think it led me down the right path because now I get to work with women in similar scenarios on, honoring who they are and keeping their emotional and mental side healthy. Because it's hard. It's really easy to lose all of that when you're answering to so many people and you're responsible at the end of the day for all of it. So I'm
Yeah.
happy where it led me. But if I knew how many hardships were ahead of me, I don't know if I would have had the courage to make that jump. So maybe
It's
it's
almost
better that I was
better that you
ignorant.
didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe ignorance was bliss.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it's a different lifestyle for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I commend you on the work that you're doing. I think it's really needed because even around here, it's like, okay, who do I refer to? Who do I like their work? And people ask me if they can't get in to see me, and I'm like, I don't like to recommend people, So I think it's great that you have that down there, that you have some, people have a place to go
Yeah,
because
it
it's
is great. And speaking of that, I guess a sidebar, but I like networking is so important. And it is really scary to refer families to providers that you've heard of because we refer out all the time for all different reasons. So we have made it where we will have at least one, maybe two, sometimes speakers come speak to the staff every month so that they can ask questions and at least get a face to face so they feel confident when they're deciding to make a referral. We're trying to
yeah,
do that more and more. Networking is really important.
it is really important because you don't want to take on something that's not what you do. I mean,
Hmm.
I do that with people too. It's like I want to make sure I'm the right fit, just like you want to make sure I'm the right fit, because I want to be able to deliver what you're looking for.
Well, yeah.
Because
We're working also with people's babies, right? Like, I don't care if they're 2 or they're 15. This is someone's baby. And I
yeah,
don't take that lightly at all. It's up to us to provide the best care, but also just a safe place for these families. Because if you're seeing their child or we're seeing their child, we're seeing these children because they're struggling in some area. I'm not, you know, a fun dance studio or a place a kid comes for a good time. So I want
right.
to just be really cognizant of people seek out our services when they need help. And that's a vulnerable place to come from. And we need to honor that. And I definitely want to make sure wherever I send these families, they're getting that same care.
Yeah, I find that hard to find, to be honest, because I treat every child as if they were my own. At least that's my goal, that I really
Yeah.
try and to try to build that rapport and everything. So I don't ever want to send people to somebody that I don't feel like will do that, because I don't want them to not get that care. And also, it's a reflection of me as a professional to say, okay, yeah, I approve of this person. So I think that's a very tricky balance. And you really
Yeah.
have to understand where you're sending them and why.
Yeah. And just have a lot of empathy for these families and care what you're doing. Okay, I want to get back to, so you decided to go out on your own and you grew into what you are today. What successes kept you going and motivated you, and what challenges did you face?
I think the successes are the feedback that I get from families.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, I love to hear, I love to hear that, wow, they've improved so much, or this was so helpful. So that really keeps me going. Also, I really like the sense of completion. So when I complete a big evaluation, I feel like, I feel good about this.
Check.
Here it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But definitely challenges have been, navigating maybe difficult clients, or one of them, early in my career, I remember they said, I didn't talk to them about how insurance doesn't cover it. And I
Mm.
remember that I did.
Hmm.
And so I think what happened within that family is it caused a marital issue, because the wife
Mm.
wanted something and the husband didn't. And so that made me create an insurance form that I have
Yep.
people fill out, so
Yeah.
now I don't have that problem, but I had to learn the really hard way.
You do. I think a lot of lessons like that are really hard. I forget what happened in the clinic last week. I can't remember, but something happened and I was like, write a policy. I was talking to my clinical director. I'm like, and they're like, oh, policy's already, been written. But yeah, I mean, for years things come up and you're like, oh, I need a form. I need a
Yep,
policy.
let's add that to the form.
Yeah.
And I remember that, or just, different issues over maybe, an invoice. I don't really have that many issues anymore because I've worked through it.
Yeah.
I think working with attorneys has been interesting, because they want a certain thing and it's like on me, like, this is my report. I will work with them, to make sure it's something that they want to an extent.
Yeah.
I own my report, so a part of that is that confidence, that I have within myself, and not letting people push me around.
Do you feel that that continues to build over time, or do
Yeah,
you feel it's pretty established?
I think it builds over time, especially as you get older. I'm 40 now,
Something
and
happens when you're 40, huh? Because I just turned 40.
yes, I don't know what it is. It's
Yeah.
well, I definitely don't stay up as late.
Yeah.
Um,
I definitely can't drink wine anymore without a horrible headache. Yeah.
yeah, I
But there's a
mean,
little bit of like just knowing who you are and owning it.
yeah, and owning it and being okay. Like, hey, if they don't like that, I'm cool with that.
Yeah. If I'm
Oh,
not for you, that's totally fine. I can't be for everyone. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, just that confidence about moving forward, where I think in my earlier career, it's like, oh, I wanted to please all these people. Oh,
Yeah.
I should take them, like,
Yeah.
oh, now I'm like, oh, work out.
Yeah. Was it easy to grow for you, or did you feel like just getting the ball moving and finding those initial clients
I
was
think
a struggle?
I think that took a little while. I would say maybe 4 or 5 months, and after
Okay.
that, uh,
It was fast.
not that long. Yeah, I had connections within the community. And then I also, would send people like my pamphlet or drop my cards by schools, do different things like that, call people and just email them and network myself. Now I don't have to do any of that. Now, hospitals refer to me, schools refer to me, all kinds. In fact, I think I should pull most of my advertising away, because I it's hard to maintain it all. But yeah,
Yeah.
not too long, but I was kind of um persistent with getting my name out there and telling people what I do.
Persistent. Yeah, I think that's a lot of what it is at the beginning is being persistent and persevering when you don't know the outcome and it feels hard and a little scary. I think,
Mhm.
for anybody that does want to be an entrepreneur and create something, you have to be very persistent when it feels unknown.
Yeah. I think just making a move, no matter what it is, just doing something is
Uh-huh.
way better than not doing anything.
Absolutely. I think that's really, really good advice. Before we end, I do want to ask you, I love to ask at the end, what are three pieces of advice that you would give to anyone starting out or anyone who's a working mom, just anything that you've learned from your journey that you would share with others?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've been talking to people about is they ask me like, how did you get where you got? And what I did is I looked at jobs and also at people and looked at their education and looked to see what they have that I needed to get.
Oh, I like that a lot.
Because it also gives you a goal and it gives you like a more narrow pathway to get to that goal.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing. And then the other thing, I think make up your mind. You got to make up your mind. You got to go with something, whether, I don't want to say that I want to be a marine biologist when I'm halfway through my PsyD. It's
Yeah.
like you got to pick something and you got to go with it. And I think giving it 100% and dedicating your life to that kind of work is really passionate. And I think the third thing is allow time for yourself to take breaks, to refocus, to be with your children. All of that kind of makes you a better person to where you can help other people more.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that's one of the hardest things that I've had to learn for myself. I felt like if I canceled a client or I canceled a meeting or I wasn't in my clinic, I was just letting so many people down. But really, if I don't take care of myself, I'm going to let everybody down because I'm going to be not great
Yeah, you're gonna
to be
sink
around.
into a puddle, right? Yeah, I think that is still hard for me because that level of responsibility can
Yeah.
be so high.
Yeah.
Or if I overbook myself, I'm like, oh boy, like how am I gonna navigate this?
Yeah.
So now that more in my 40s, I've realized like I can't take on as much as I thought that I could take on because it just completely wears me out. And then I'm crabby. I'm not good for my husband or my kids.
Yep.
So I recently like started scheduling my workouts in the morning, and that's just what I do. Whereas before I felt like I had to start work at that time, and then I
Mhm.
wouldn't have time to work out, and I don't really know why I thought that.
I think we just set the expectations for ourselves so high. It's really, it's work to undo that mentality. And I keep trying to
Yeah.
tell myself that sometimes instead of being a human doing, we just need to be a human being.
Yeah. Yeah, I really love that because it's so true. I think working out is so important to
Yeah.
being successful. And I heard that too, that there's no like CEO or, really, really high up professional person that doesn't work out and really take it seriously and take care of themselves because it reduces anxiety. It makes you focus on yourself for that time and that it helps you
Yeah.
sleep better and all of that.
Yeah.
Um,
It really does. For
so
me, my favorite, I do love strength training, but my favorite thing the past few years is a really long walk when the sun's
I love
out.
you.
Oh,
Yeah.
the vitamin D and just like being able to hear my own thoughts for like an hour or more alone
Mm-hmm.
is it's a little bit of bliss.
I know. I totally agree. And I listen to podcasts on my
Yep.
walk too.
Podcasts, sometimes really good music. But it's just I get to be alone. I work out in my garage so my kids can walk in at any time. So the walks are key.
Yeah.
I'm a lot.
I hear that. I love that too. And I'm like, well, should I be running? Wait a minute. No,
Oh,
walk.
okay. That's so true. Like, I am like, Jesse, don't track it. Don't track your mileage. You know the mileage. Don't track your pace, but I just can't help it.
I know. I
I
know.
know. It's
Like
just, I
that
know.
little piece that you want to push yourself a little bit more.
I know. I know. Maybe at 45 we'll stop doing that.
Yeah, I hope so.
Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's so good to see your face even through Zoom and to
Yes.
catch up. And I'm just so happy for you and everything that you've done. And as a mommy of someone who has needed these services, you're doing amazing work. So thank you.
Well, I feel the same about you and
Oh,
really
thanks.
proud of your business, proud to have you as my friend and
Thank you.
feel
Next
blessed to
time we'll
be.
do a fun phone call.
Okay, and if you come up to Monterey, we'll go to the aquarium or
Yeah,
something.
absolutely. That would be so fun. So yeah, we'll absolutely do that. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye.